Welcome friends to another r/maliciouscompliance video. Our first story of the day is by Cleefish, My House, My Rules. Okay, so a few years ago my dad was moving out of his house and in with his parents due to some health problems with my grandma. This was over summer break and I was just out of high school at the time, about to go into college, so I had absolutely nothing to do all summer as I waited to move out of state. My dad never was and still isn't super organized, whereas I alphabetize my own bookshelf with a full system type A about keeping things in order. Call me weird, but I really enjoy reorganizing things and cleaning. It just hits that button for me. So being that he had about 2 months until he closed on the house, I just started to pack up some of the house for him. Basement was a disaster and I had wanted to tear it up for years. So within the first day, I had made a significant dent in the basement, which ended up being a very involved process. I didn't realize when we had moved in that a lot of the stuff from our old house was still packed haphazardly because my brother and I were too young to really help. So I went through the process of unpacking the still packed boxes from house 1, labeling the boxes the way I wanted to, and then repacking those boxes appropriately. After about 3 days of this, I get about 50% done, including cleaning and packing my room and some of the garage. Here's the build up to the malicious compliance. My dad comes down to help me, all good with me. I start explaining where things go when my dad wants to change it. I resist, explaining that I already have the system and that I've been doing the bulk of the packing, so he should probably just go with me on this one, which is when he hits me with the namesake of this post. So I relent because I know what will happen. Anyone that's really type A will agree with me that the only thing more frustrating than things being chaotic and out of order is things that are slightly out of order, which is what I knew would happen. Regardless of the fight Dad and I had, he ended up almost following the system. Mostly things that belonged in the labeled boxes went where they were supposed to, except for a few very important odds and ends that got put, well, not where they were supposed to. I noticed this, but because of my house, my rules, clearly he has a plan, so I don't say anything. I knew the payoff was going to be a slow burn, and it came several months later when I was in school across the country and unable to help. Dad calls me one day very flustered because he can't find something he needed. He had been in the storage unit he rented in my hometown for the better part of 3 hours looking. Now the storage unit got packed horribly by the moving crew. I've been in there a few times after this story, and I feared for my safety. It's a legitimate labyrinth/jungle gym and a nightmare to get through. Not to mention, this was midsummer, and there was no AC. So Dad is mad on the phone asking me where it is, and I ask him if it's in the box I labeled in big red Sharpie, "Important crap." He says no, and I smile a bit. Then he says, "Well, you were in charge of packing all this stuff and now I can't find it." That's when I calmly reminded him of the blowout fight we had over this exact issue and how he commandeered my operation afterwards. I told him that if I was actually in charge, it would be in the box labeled "Important crap." He hung up on me after that. I love my dad and I had no problem helping him out. We laugh about it today, but I can't say I didn't get a good chuckle at the thought of him sweating and cursing, climbing around in that freaking storage unit death trap. He recently found another place to live now that my grandparents have more in-home assistance, and I've already worked out that I'm gonna come help him move. We already agreed that I'm in charge this time. Alright guys, be honest, are you very methodical in how you organize things? Or are you the kind of person that just, if there's an open cabinet, or are you the kind of person that if there's an empty cabinet or drawer, that looks like a good place to just toss all this stuff? I'll be honest, I'm kind of the person that throws everything into one spot, and then slowly tries to reorganize it a little bit more after that. It's definitely not the most organized and it's a slower process, but it gets the job done enough, I think. Let me know which way you are in the comments down below. Our next story is by Maid Boxer. She told me to do exactly what she says, and I did. I'm a secretary for a medical facility that funds other medical institutions. I'm also responsible for their travel to conventions and conferences. There is a very large, very highly attended conference held each year in which our medical professional staff are invited as presenters. One such Karen-esque presenter just has to be incredibly difficult as she feels she's above us dregs and never lets us forget it. As a presenter, they're given certain hotels that are reserved for them at a reduced rate. However, most are nowhere near the convention site and they end up paying a crapload of money to cabs. No Uber at the time. I set up the travel for at least 10 folk when I realized that, by a loophole, I can book them into the hotel where the conference is held. So I do that instead of allowing the conference coordinators to book them in heaven knows where at the last minute, which they're prone to do. Karen comes up to me and demands that I only book her into the hotels listed by the conference coordinators, and if I don't, she will have me written up. So that's what I did. The day before they all leave for the conference, which was clean across the country on the West Coast, Karen found out she was not only the only one not booked in the conference hotel, but she was 9 miles away near the airport. And no, there were no more rooms available at the conference hotel. She was hopping mad and stormed to my desk screaming about me putting her in a faraway 2-star hotel. I looked at her and calmly stated that she was in one of 3 hotels the conference coordinators reserved for her, and she distinctly instructed me to only select those hotels and nothing else. She ended up spending more than $70 in cab fare to and from the hotel to the venue, while everyone else only had to go downstairs from their hotel rooms. She almost missed giving her presentation because she was late. After that, when I booked everyone for a trip, Karen no longer demanded I give her special treatment and lets me use my judgment when booking hotels. I feel like this Karen was aware that people distinctly don't like them, because why else would they come up to somebody whose job is reserving the hotel spots and warn them that they don't dare choose anything other than what's recommended? Either that or they were just being picky or something. But I think it was because they were afraid that because people probably don't like them, they thought they would try and stick them in some crappy hotel far away, and therefore made sure that they got stuck in a crappy hotel far away. This next story is by KQD2722. I can obey both, or I can ignore both. I was an E5 sergeant in the army stationed in Germany. On a sunny spring day, I was to drive 2 senior enlisted men and 1 captain from Frankfurt to visit a training area south of Munich. I had a van ready to go, and as everyone got in, they each took a moment to point out the no smoking stencil on the dash to me. The captain took extra time to tap on the stencil with a hooked index finger to be sure I saw it. None of them smoked, and I was a smokestack. On any given day, I smoked 2 packs of cigarettes. All 3 of them seemed to enjoy pointing out the no smoking sign to me. Normal Autobahn speeds for me were 85 to 95 miles per hour. At this speed, our trip would take under 3 hours. Malicious compliance. When we reached the Autobahn, I kept the speed at 55 miles per hour. If I came upon a slightly slower vehicle, I did not pass, rather than risk exceeding 55 miles per hour. In less than half an hour, one of the senior enlisted men suggested I could drive a bit faster. I put on my serious face and used a hooked index finger, tapping the stencil under the no smoking stencil the captain taped on. Speed limit 55 miles per hour. I watched the defeated expressions on their faces as they settled in for an over 5-hour drive each way. I did not smoke while I drove, and I did not exceed 55 miles per hour. The fallout, for the next 2.5 years, I was never again tasked as a driver. Oh, how easy it is to want to break some rules when they benefit you. But anything that doesn't benefit you or you personally don't like, you better stick to the rules, mister. This next story is by Po Tho. Golf Marshal enforces the rules despite the issues it causes for everyone. Bachelor party golf round on a Friday morning, pissing rain, nobody waiting for the rain to stop but us. Once it stops, myself and 7 others start our round. The pro shop was aware and had no problem with this. We played a 4v4 scramble and are all decent, so we quickly lost sight of the group that started behind us. 6 holes in, and we're basically all alone on this course. We were the first to start after the rain and couldn't see anybody behind us for at least a hole and a half. Major Marshal rule follower rolls up saying we have to split. I say why? Marshal says those are the rules. I say we know, but there's nobody we're holding up. Doesn't matter, those are the rules. So what if you split us up and the course starts backing up? That's what it is. Rules are rules. So we decide to maliciously comply, split, and proceed to take 2 more hours to finish the front 9. Walking out to the fairway, cart path only, with a 6 and deciding I needed a 7, walking back to get a 7, walking back to hit the shot, only to realize I did need the 6 all along. Lining up every putt for 5 minutes, breaks to drink beers and smoke. Crap got backed up as you could imagine. Hole 12 and the Marshal comes back. Okay, you all play together, but just speed it back up for God's sake. Apparently the pro shop chewed him out because people were mad we were taking so long. Kind of a crappy thing to do on our part, but it was my boy's bachelor party and we were a little intoxicated. Are golfers playing together really that much slower than playing individually? Especially for a group that claims that they're actually pretty good. Like, what's the difference in speed of 4 guys going relatively around the same time versus one after one after one after one? Guess I just don't know golf well enough. Our next story's by Gozer Destructor. No coffee for you. During the post-9/11 recession, I was working for a very big corporation. You've heard of them and you've probably been a customer at some point. On an upper floor of a skyscraper in downtown Chicago, this company was seeking to pinch pennies any way they could. One of these methods was to set the thermostat to 78 degrees in the summer, which had all of us sweating at our desks, and also watching the clocks because 5:01 p.m. meant we could flee to somewhere that had air conditioning. Later that year, they sent out another memo. Coffee would no longer be provided by the company. We'd had coffee service in the break rooms. Nothing fancy, just pre-portioned foil packets of Folgers or Maxwell House, and those diner-style drip coffee makers where the glass pot sits on the hot plates for hours until someone decides it's nasty and dumps it. We were also forbidden to have coffee makers at our desks because fire safety. So what else was there to do but to go to Starbucks? This meant leaving the building via the elevators, walking a block or so, standing in line, paying $4 to $5 for something that used to be free. There was much grumbling at that. Walking back to our building, buzzing in at the security desk, taking the elevators back, usually about a 20-minute process, more if the line was long. I'm a programmer. A programmer's time is worth at least $100 an hour, once you factor in things like benefits, office floor space, equipment, and all the other overhead. Almost my entire department did this. We'd often leave the floor in groups to get our hot bean water, without which it's generally impossible to function in the afternoons. Which means the company was screwing themselves out of about $200 of productivity lost per day for my team alone, to save themselves about $3 of cheap but ground coffee and 25 cents worth of electricity to heat it. Really feels like that case of micromanagement rearing its ugly head in, without great consideration to A, morale, and B, productivity. If you got a lot of coffee drinkers, providing that cheap coffee, and thereby preventing them from having to leave all the way to a different location and come back just for coffee, you'd really be doing yourself a favor. And our final story of the day is by Anonyma53. Always late to pick me up? Alright then, let's play by your rules. This story's about my dad, who I love more than anything, but he has a few big flaws, and one of them is being late. And I mean about an hour late every time I wanted him to pick me up when I was a teenager. I had to wait for an hour, sometimes 2 after high school was over, because he said he would pick me up but didn't leave his house on time. He lived 1 hour and a half away from me, but somehow always managed to not get the timing right, and it always got me frustrated. I understood how late traffic could make him sometimes, but highways in this rural area were not constantly blocked, so I knew it was a mistake on his part all the time. So I decided to play by his rule of always being late the night of my prom. More precisely, the next morning. I was having a nice after-prom party at a friend's house, but she told us that her parents absolutely needed us gone by 1 p.m. Not a minute later, or they would miss an event they were going to with their family. Here's how the phone call with my dad went. "Hi Dad, you'll come pick me up tomorrow by 12 p.m., right? If you get late, my friend will miss her event." Dad says, "Don't worry, I'll be here with your sister to pick you up by then." I smirk and enjoy the party. I explained my little scheme to my friends and we all laughed. Worst case scenario, I left an hour early, which wasn't that bad. We slept soundly that night until like 11 a.m., and around 11:30, I get a call. Yep, you would have guessed it. It's my dad. More precisely, my sister talking since my dad's driving. Sister says, "Hey sis, we're going to be late. We just left the house." I said, "I know. That's why I said be here by noon." I actually had to leave by 1 p.m., so no need to stress. My dad was listening due to the phone being on speakers, and I could hear his classic wheeze laughing. I left 15 minutes early, and my dad started being less and less late after that. I think the beautiful thing is not really that there was confrontation that led to the dad realizing how bad they are at just getting somewhere on time, but rather just working around them and making them have to realize what other people are doing just to make sure they actually show up on time. I definitely think that kind of thing would definitely resonate to people more when they realize what's going on. It's like a awakening moment. Like, darn, I really am so bad that people just compensate for me. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So if you have a favorite story of the day, let me know which story and why in the comments down below. But besides that, if you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like, and if you haven't, subscribe and turn notifications on so you'll never miss an upcoming video. No matter what you do, whether it's just viewing the video, liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, I appreciate the heck out of it. Every little thing that you do helps the channel grow that much more, and I can't thank you enough for it. So, until next time, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll be right here next time on the Storytime channel.